You ever notice how a Saturday that starts quiet always seems to go sideways the fastest? That was me. Sun up, just me and a pile of cedar, finally building the fence I'd dreamed of since moving to Maplewood. I can still hear the clink of those nails, smell the cut wood, feel the mud caked on my boots. That fence wasn't fancy or even tall, but it was mine, a line that said, "Here, this is home." I'd just started lining up the posts when I saw her. Karen. Yeah, that Karen. Floral hat pulled down, clipboard like a shield, arms folded so tight I thought she'd snap. She just stared, silent, while the wind scattered her papers. Never took her eyes off me, not once. I tried to ignore her, focused on the work. Then her voice cut the air. "Excuse me, you can't build that there. That's HOA property." I looked up, sun in my eyes. "Morning, Karen," I said, trying to keep it civil, but she was already in attack mode. "This is my land," I said. "Check the survey myself." She just scoffed, flicking through her papers, quoting HOA code this and bylaw that, acting like she owned the dirt under my feet. I told her, "I'm not in the HOA." She went stone cold for a second, then started dialing her phone. And just like that, she called the cops on me for building a fence on my own yard. A patrol car showed up, young officer, all calm and polite. Karen practically sprinted over, waving her clipboard like a battle flag, claiming I was breaking the law. The officer looked at me. "You got proof?" I didn't even speak. Just walked to the garage, grabbed my deed, unrolled it. The officer matched it against his GPS and, after a long pause, nodded. "Ma'am, the fence is on his property. He's not under HOA rules." Karen's face, man, if looks could kill. She sputtered, tried to argue, but the officer tipped his hat and left. That silence afterward felt like winning the lottery. But she didn't walk away defeated. She looked back at me, gave this thin little smile, and said, "You think this is over?" That's when I knew this was just the beginning. 6 months I'd been in that house, chasing quiet after years in the city. I picked that lot for the creek, the trees, and because the realtor swore up and down, "You're not under the HOA." Freedom. Or so I thought. Karen welcomed me with cookies, store-bought, plastic tray. Zero warmth. Said, "I'm the HOA chairperson. Call me anytime." Friendly, on the surface, but her eyes were scanning my yard for violations. 2 weeks later, a notice about my mailbox. Next, my garden lights. Every time, I reminded her, "I'm not in the HOA." Every time, her tone got sharper. But I waved, shoveled the sidewalk after storms, tried to play nice. Never mattered. She needed control, and I'd become her favorite project. Then her dog, Muddy Retriever, wandered into my yard, leash snapped. I gave it water, cleaned it up, brought it back. All she said was, "He better not have gotten fleas on your grass." That's when it clicked. Some people don't want peace, they want problems. Karen was one of them. So when I started building that fence, I knew she'd see it as a challenge. She watched me measure, dig, lay out the posts, called the HOA board, left letters in my mailbox. I kept on, my property, my right. But the morning that first nail went in, I had no idea how far she'd go. After the cop left that day, Karen hit me with everything she had. Yellow HOA notices taped to my fence, threats of fines, emails to the neighborhood accusing me of destroying unity. I started getting anonymous letters. "Take down the fence before you bring more trouble." Trash bins tipped, sprinklers mysteriously busted, spray paint on my driveway. All while Karen sat across the street sipping lemonade, watching the chaos. She escalated again. Fake citations, survey marks on my lawn, the whole circus. I called the HOA board president. Explained it all. He sighed and said, "Sir, your property isn't in the HOA. She's been warned before. I'll handle it." But Karen didn't stop. Started recording me, filing complaints. Trespassing at night. I documented everything. Photos, videos, calls. Then one night, a storm rolled in, Texas kind of storm, wild wind and sideways rain. I saw a figure near the fence, heard a crack. Next morning, 3 panels down, muddy footprints leading straight back to Karen's yard. Officer Daniels showed up, filed it as vandalism. I bought cameras, motion lights, put up a 24-hour surveillance sign. That slowed her down. But then the cameras caught her, middle of the night, gloves on, inspecting my repairs. I printed the footage, called the cops again. Daniels watched it. Said, "We'll pay her a visit." Neighbors started coming out of the woodwork. Mrs. Thompson brought me a pie. Whispered, "You're doing the right thing. She's been after all of us." Mr. Patel laughed. Said she once filed a complaint about his too joyful Christmas lights. For the first time, I didn't feel alone. We rebuilt the fence together. Karen's blinds never stopped twitching. And just when it looked like peace was possible, a stone hit my fence. The cameras caught a small figure, her child. That hit different. She was teaching her own family to carry her grudges. But then Karen vanished. No more flyers, no more drama. Weeks passed. I started to breathe again, repainting the fence, letting Bruno the retriever run wild in the yard. Then one afternoon, a new car pulled up. Margaret Ellis, the new HOA chair, stepped out all business, folder in hand. Said she wanted to clarify unresolved matters left behind by Karen. Inside the envelope, copies of the old annexation proposal and a fresh petition signed by board members to reconsider jurisdiction. Margaret smiled, said, "We just want to be sure we're all on the same page after what happened." Same game, new face. I called my lawyer, Mr. Clark. He told me to document everything, file a cease and desist, don't let them push. For a week, things held steady, but then I got another letter, HOA letterhead, my signature forged again, consenting to join the association. I almost laughed. Sent it to Clark, who called it desperate. But the old fear came back. Was it ever going to? And then, late one night, I saw a figure near the fence again. This time, a young woman, clipboard, sharp smile, same cheekbones as Karen. Emily Reynolds. Her daughter. The flyer came the next morning. A new vision for Maplewood. Emily. All charm and promises, but underneath, same obsession as her mother. She started quietly, but then the curb was painted fire zone. My yard became a war zone. Neighbors divided. I found notes. Maybe it's time you moved. One night, I confronted her at the fence. She told me her mother had died in that facility, blamed me, said, "You'll never belong here." My heart twisted. I never wanted it to end like that. But Maplewood isn't a place that lets go. Spray paint on the fence. She was right about you. Another emergency meeting. Neighbors fighting in the street. Old wounds opened wider. Finally, Emily left a jar at my fence, her mother's ashes. Wanted to keep her here forever. I buried it under the oak tree at the edge of my yard, not for Karen, but for peace. For a while, it worked. Neighbors waved again. Bruno ran free. But even now, as I stand by my fence, I know the war never really ends in Maplewood. There's always someone ready to pick up the clipboard and start it all over. Tell me, where are you watching from? Have you ever had a neighbor like this? Or stood your ground when everyone wanted you gone? Drop your city in the comments, share your story, and let's see who's really got the wildest neighborhood in America. You know, I always thought after everything with Karen and the old board, maybe, just maybe, I'd finally get a break. But if there's one thing Maplewood taught me, it's this. Peace is just a pause between storms. And sure enough, just when the dust settles, the next chapter shows up right on time. Sometimes wearing a new name tag, sometimes just carrying an old grudge in a different envelope. For a few weeks, things were so quiet it felt like living in a different world. The sun came up, I'd walk Bruno down to the creek. Neighbors would nod or wave, sometimes even stop to say hi again. My fence stood solid, patched and painted, and for the first time since moving in, I didn't jump every time the doorbell rang. I even started planting tomatoes, thinking maybe this was the year I'd finally see some peace. You know that feeling? Like you're just starting to belong somewhere, even after all that mess? But, of course, in Maplewood, a little peace is like chum in the water. It draws the sharks. It was a Thursday when Margaret Ellis, the acting HOA chair, showed up again. She had that look. Tight smile, crisp folder, voice as smooth as elevator music. "Mr. Davis," she started, just following up on some leftover items from the transition. I told her straight, my lawyer's got everything. We're done here. She nodded, real polite, but there was that flicker in her eyes, like she'd already decided how the next round would go. Next week, the letters started. Not threats, not this time, just notices. Zoning reviews, requests for clarification, little reminders taped to the mailbox. One afternoon I came home. and found a group of volunteers cleaning up along my side yard, sweeping, snapping pictures, measuring the mailbox again. When I stepped out, Emily Reynolds was there, clipboard, gray jacket. The same steel in her posture. "Just routine, Mr. Davis," she said, but she never looked me in the eye. She was always taking notes, always talking to someone just out of earshot. You could feel the shift in the neighborhood. Some folks, like Mrs. Thompson, still waved, dropped off a pie or a handful of fresh herbs over the fence. Others wouldn't even make eye contact. The whispers started. "Up, he's the guy who fought the HOA, troublemaker, doesn't care about the community." Sometimes I'd catch Emily walking the block with other board members, stopping in front of my house, pointing, jotting things down. Bruno started barking at every shadow. And then, late one Friday, the real blow landed. An official-looking letter, county seal and all, announcing an upcoming review of boundary adjustments requested by Maplewood HOA. I felt my stomach drop. This was the same move Karen pulled, just wrapped up in fancier words and a lot more signatures. I took it straight to Mr. Clark, my attorney. He scanned it, whistled low, and said, "They're betting you'll get tired and move. But this time, it's on record, every step." That weekend, things hit a boiling point. I woke up Sunday morning to see yellow caution tape strung across my driveway. No note, just tape, like some crime scene. On the fence, a fresh flyer, bold type. "Keep Maplewood safe, say no to outsiders." There was a photo of my fence, grainy and dark, with my house just barely in the background. Underneath, "He's dividing us." Bruno whined when he saw it. I swear even he was tired of the games. So I did what you do when you're cornered and tired and angry all at once. I started knocking on doors. Not to fight, just to talk. I told the story to anyone who'd listen, Mrs. Thompson, Mr. Patel, even the new couple down the block who barely knew my name. Some listened, some just closed the door. But a few nodded and said, "We've had enough, too." That night, a few neighbors came by. "If you ever need a witness or someone to stand up with you, call me." That meant more than any lawyer. A couple nights later, I heard footsteps outside, slow, careful. I peeked out, saw a shadow by the fence. This time it was Emily, standing alone, just staring at the boards. She caught my eye, didn't flinch, just held my gaze. "It doesn't have to be like this," she called. Her voice low, almost pleading. I walked out, kept a safe distance. "It's not me starting these fights, Emily." She shook her head. "You'll never understand what my mother built here." There was pain in her face, real, raw. All she wanted was to keep this place together. "You broke her heart." That hit me, harder than I expected. For a second, I saw her not as Karen's daughter, but just a kid trying to defend her mom's memory. But then she wiped her eyes, straightened up, and her voice went cold. "If you won't leave, we'll make sure you regret staying." The next morning, I found for sale flyers stuffed in my mailbox, in my fence posts, even taped to Bruno's collar, handwritten, "Make Maplewood whole again." My blood boiled, but I kept my cool. I documented everything, sent it all to Daniels at the police department. He came by, shook his head, promised extra patrols. "It's not a crime to be persistent," he muttered, "but keep recording, just in case." And still, the fence stood. Bruno still barked, Mrs. Thompson still waved. One night, as I sat on my porch, watching the stars come out, I realized this place was never going to give up its battles, not really. There'd always be a Karen or an Emily, always another petition, another concerned neighbor. But as long as I kept standing up, as long as I had even a few people on my side, maybe that was enough. So, yeah, that's how things are in Maplewood. The names change, the tactics shift, but the game is always the same. Protect what's yours, keep your receipts. Never blink first. Maybe you're listening to this thinking, "That could never happen where I live." Or maybe you're nodding because you know every neighborhood has a Karen or an Emily. Or maybe you are the neighbor standing your ground, fence or no fence. Let me know, where are you watching from? Drop your city, your story, your best neighborhood battle in the comments. Because I guarantee, somewhere out there, someone else is fighting the same war, and sometimes, all it takes is hearing you're not the only one.